Good evening and welcome to Inside Government, a show brought to you by Cayuga Community College and put on by Spectrum, Verizon Fios, ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, as well as the college's radio station 89.1. I'm Guy Cosentino, your host. We are delighted to have in the studio today the chairwoman of the Cayuga County Legislature, Aileen McNabb Coleman, who is just starting her second year as the chair of the legislature, which is a 15-member body. And she is just a little over a year in her second term representing the towns of Senate and Owasco. We've asked her on to give us a county update. We'll cover a couple of things that are going on besides the county's response to COVID, which we'll deal with at the end of the program. But we'll also talk about the recently passed budget, her job responsibilities, and other things that the county is working on. Welcome back to the studio.
Thank you, Guy, for having me today. I'm excited to be here, finally.
Delighted. I know. We have tried for some time to get you here.
That's true.
So, first of all, how are you and your family doing during COVID?
We're all doing well. We actually just got over a quarantine last Friday. My son was in quarantine during the week of vacation. So that was, we've been touched by this a few times through this pandemic, but we are fortunate. We've all remained healthy. I followed quarantine orders to the letter,
And
we've all stayed
sons
healthy.
are how old?
They're 10 and 12 at this point. Yeah.
So how was quarantine for them?
It's, there's video games. There's a TV moved into a bedroom. So
Which most likely a year ago would not have been.
No.
Okay.
And there's also a multiplayer of the video game, so they can play one another from different rooms. So
Okay.
this is that was very novel for them we made that happen. I don't know what kind of wizardry my husband was able to pull to get that together, but it worked.
The week.
Yes, it worked.
But better in a period of a school vacation.
Right.
Than any other.
Exactly.
So you were elected in January, again to a second term. You were unopposed.
Right.
For that, which is somewhat unknown for the Cayuga County Legislature. Why did you want to do this again, especially in this time of COVID?
Well, certainly last year, we started off the year very strong with some initiatives that we wanted to bring forth and bring through into the county. Soon after I took office in the chair position, we started to hear about the coronavirus, and certainly we didn't understand that only a few months later we would be in the throes of a shutdown. So I'm really interested in seeing us through the pandemic this year and hopefully returning back to developing the initiatives. I'm actually trying to do that now parallel to the virus. So we've been working really hard. We're doing a lot of communicating.
Walk and chew gum. You can do multiple.
We're doing it simultaneously.
So I want to talk a little bit about the position because it kind of changed with the budget in December for January. But are you in essence the day-to-day manager of the county now?
At this point, yes, and I was all last year as well. And then this year we formalized it by calling the chair, full-time chair. They increased the salary for this year.
Moved it from 30 to 60.
That's true. And
so is this a one-time this year only, or will it be reviewed in December or during the budget process that you'll put together next October?
The intention is that it's a one-time because we're hoping to build in supports as we move along this year.
Which leads me to my normal question that everyone asks, and I think is in every single citizen story somewhere, somehow. You had a county administrator up until June of 2019.
That's right.
So a good 19 months ago, 17, whatever your math is.
Wow, a long time.
It has been a long time. Where are you in figuring out whether you're going to go with a county manager? Because that was, I look back at what your message was last January, February of last year, and was, hey, by the way, we're going to deal with this.
Yep.
And then you got slammed with COVID.
That's true.
So where are you on the process of that position?
So we've moved away from that position and looking for a refill for that position. Right now we've built into the budget organizational structure to support a chair or an executive of the county. So right now we just had a Civil Service Commission meeting to discuss and adopt the title of an operations officer for the county. And with that will come an administrative assistant to support both.
And these are two new positions that were in the budget.
That's true.
So does that mean we're not going to have a county manager in the next couple of years?
We are going through this transition process as we decide that. So we are also looking to put on the ballot in November a referendum to look into a charter commission to become a charter county. And we are we'll be exploring the charter from now until about early or late summer before we have to get the referendum together, and discussing all forms of government and what are our options.
So I don't want to get into minutiae because that'll bore people to death,
Sure.
except for me. So charter commission what you are not allowed to do currently was you were not allowed, when this position was done some 10, 14 years ago, there was some criticism. I think I was one of those. I didn't think it was well thought out at the time, and I think for administrators later, most likely been proved out. Not happy I'm right, but it's still the issue of a structural issue.
Sure.
So it's not like a city manager, because you couldn't do a manager until you did certain things, and the legislature 12 years ago didn't want to go through those particular tasks. You can cover a county manager now. You could do a county executive. Will those be on the ballot, or will it just be creating a commission?
It will just be a commission at this point. Now, we're going to be going through this in the next number of months, so we'll see what ends up being the result of that study. And right now we have called on some experts in the area. We have some experts from SU weighing in. Chris Petras is currently the vice chair, and he's leading the charge with looking into everything that a commission needs to have in place. I have heard that a lot of the legislature is interested in an elected executive for the purpose.
What would you like to see?
I really would like to see an elected, for the reasons that they are beholden to the taxpayers. To me, that is a very important aspect of the position. I think when you get someone in there who is wanting to make changes and wanting to do that very quickly, and they're not so concerned about its effect and impact on the taxpayers, that worries me.
So you would say that the administrator, the position itself was flawed,
Yes.
the way it's structured.
I would agree to that. Yes.
And the county's seen that in a number of iterations. Is it four, maybe
Yes.
4.5,
Yeah.
counting a part-timer you had in there, or a temporarily person you brought in.
Right.
So does that mean that any change you wouldn't see any change until the elections of 2023?
If it was an elected, for sure, yeah, it would be that.
But if you went to a county manager, you could implement that. And do you see it going on the ballot as being two separate propositions? I know this is far off. This is literally 20 months away.
Right.
But would you see it, what you've seen of other counties, would it be you can either choose a county executive, or you can choose a county manager, or do you think it'll just be one item on the agenda?
I prefer for the people to decide what they want the structure to be. But at this point, it's for the commission. I guess that's what they're gearing toward. Now, we're just starting this process. So like I said, there'll be a lot of study and discussion.
And this is an election year. I know the Citizen ran a list of candidates today. Half the legislature, roughly half the legislature's up this year.
Yes.
So do you think this will be something that will be driven by also the campaign season?
Likely, yes. And so then, and of course, the legislative candidates are up for 2 years on the ballot to be elected for a 2-year position, and then in 2 years, we're all running again
So in
at the same time.
2023, we could see a lot of different things on the ballot.
Absolutely, right.
So we talked a little bit about the budget. You passed that 11-4 back in December.
Yes.
It's a $152 million budget with an M, not with a B.
That's right.
You were well below the tax cap of 5.7. I think your tax levy was up about 1.9.
1.9, that's right.
And so that stayed within those parameters.
Certainly.
Did you have to make staffing cuts this year?
We did not.
So it was attrition. I know there were 9 positions. Were those attritions and vacancies?
Yes, they were vacancies that we then eliminated from the budget in order to save money. We also, early on in this pandemic, not knowing what was going to happen with the sales tax, enacted the furloughs through the summer. That was a challenging time as well. We were able to reap the savings from that. I mean, of course, we had to empty out the county office building and all of our ancillary buildings. So, you know, that was a strategy that was useful in that time. But yes, we were able to avoid cuts, and we were able to add to the organizational structure of the sixth floor and the leadership. So,
at this stage, where you're looking at it ending up the year, how are you doing on the sales tax front?
very well. So,
What do you attribute it to?
you know, I don't know. I think a lot of folks are investing in their homes. A lot of folks are maybe, you know, saying, you know, I'd really like that better car, or, you know, I really want to, you know, upgrade in different things, because it's a, you know, we're in this sort of moment of life that you want to live well. If you're going to try to get something and you want to, I guess, treat yourself, and you're,
And they're not spending it on travel.
you're not spending it on travel, and you're not spending it on a lot of things that we normally do. You're not doing your Y membership. You're not doing your golf club membership in other travel. So
Chris Nusarino was here 2 weeks ago, though. He would like you to continue your Y membership, and some people have, even though there are limits there. Let me ask you the converse of the sales tax issue, and I know the county tourism office has had a couple of seminars in the last, or public meetings, or I shouldn't say meetings, but video events.
Sure.
What is your bed tax? Where are you on that particular front? Because that funds your tourism operations for the most part.
I believe partially, and I'm not exactly sure of the percentage, but I know that, you know, that is a concern for overall tourism, to have these, you know, declines in tourism in parts of the industry that we enjoy here in the county.
But it's not slowing down places like Mackenzie Childs or the Inns of Aurora, it looks like.
No, and that's been quite an interesting thing. And I know they did the barn sale online this year, and they had one of their best years ever. So, you know, you know, we're so pleased. And I know personally, and many people that I run into with my circles, everyone is supporting local. I mean, I've done lots of buying locally. I try to do curbside service at a lot of local establishments. We travel the county on the weekends. We try to spend money all over the county as a family. We go out for rides, and when we're not in quarantine, you know, from the King Ferry corner store all the way up to Fairhaven, we try to support local businesses, and I'm trying to you know, share with the community that they should be doing the same.
So were the cuts that you made and the furloughs you made, I don't know if they were interrelated, but were they all due to COVID?
The furloughs were due to COVID, yes.
How about the 9 vacancies that you had and you didn't fill?
We were very concerned about the 20% reduction in New York State aid. That is going to be, that, you know, as it was outlined to us at that time, we thought we're going to take these positions out of the budget, and then we're going to see how the state ends up and how the federal government ends up with their stimulus. And then if we need to add these back, we will. But at this time, there was too many unknowns, so it was better to.
So let's know what we do know. So I'm going to do it in 2 parts. We'll deal with the president in a moment, but let's deal with New York State, because the governor released his budget about a month ago.
Right.
But what you're talking about was something called retainage. And this is not water retainage. This is your last quarterly payments for some services that are reimbursed by the state. The governor directed that those payments not be made. They weren't cuts,
Right.
because that's different, but they were retained. It does sound like you're going to get that money at this stage. Am I correct on that?
That's correct.
So what you have seen in the state budget so far through independent analysis at the county or the New York State Association of Counties, which the county is a member, what worries you, what makes you happy in the state budget?
As we were developing through our own budget, and then understanding how much we were being affected by COVID, that 20% reduction was very scary. And I know at this point he's put on a 5% reduction of anticipated, I guess, withholding for our state programs. That
For state mandated programs?
For state, yeah, state mandated
Okay.
programs. And that, you know, while that's a relief a little bit, we're still going to be monitoring very closely how this
So
all
I'm not
ends up.
taking 4 fingers on my hand, I'm just taking 1.
Right, right. So it's still a concern. You know, I don't know. I don't know how. I'm just going to have to wait and see what gets passed. I know right now NISAC is having their annual spring conference. In fact, there was meetings today that I'm not attending right now that we're discussing the budget and its impact, and the organization, our association, is giving an up and down, thumbs up or thumbs down on each particular point, and that information is going to be forthcoming.
So you have 3 new members of the Cayuga County delegation in Albany out of 5. Are you lobbying them on anything at this particular stage? I know John Mannion was here, Senator Mannion was here last week. What are you lobbying them on? I know the city has already asked the state to come back with some highway monies that I don't think the rate for the arterial hasn't been increased since it was built, but
Right.
or in the 80s. What is the county asking? Or aren't you that far yet?
I've had some preliminary discussions actually with Senator Mannion about infrastructure upgrades for our water infrastructure for the county. The Water and Sewer Authority has a regional project that's out there and being discussed. That is coming in a proposal and being broken down into more manageable parts with a focus on the Aurora water treatment plant, and then help to areas of Springport as well, and Aurora. So that is sort of a more immediate need. So we will be likely having that presentation to us very soon. And I've shared that with the senator at this point, that we have some serious needs for infrastructure upgrades.
And so there's a federal a federal COVID relief plan that President Biden is putting forward. As it is currently configured, do you have an idea how that would impact Cayuga County?
At this point, it's it's a little murky. I hear several million of dollars, that is going to go straight to. The great thing is aid to local municipalities. We're bypassing the state; it comes straight to us. That would be a huge lift for us.
And that's for right now.
Right, right.
And that's been a problem in the past, where the money has been given to the state and it may not necessarily trickle.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
I
and
hate
we've
to
heard
say
that
that,
from,
but yeah,
well, no, but we've
that's
heard
the
that from
truth.
school districts as well.
That's right,
That
yeah.
if it goes to Albany, forget whether they take some of it on the top. Sometimes they're not giving it at all.
Right, right. So
And that may not be the intent of federal legislators.
absolutely.
So you've had some change in the legislature as well. Charles Ripley, who was a longtime legislator representing Niles, resigned in the end of the last year to become the supervisor of Niles, which he was
Right.
before that.
Summerhill, actually.
Summerhill,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Ripley. You have replaced him with Mark Strong,
That's true.
and can you tell us something about him?
Mark is new to government. Is new to politics, as if you will. He's been asking a lot of questions, just trying to get him up to speed. He's been, pretty good with that. A lot of questions, a lot of different things. He, has some understanding of CSEA contracts, being that he was a former corrections officer, so he has some ideas there. But we're just trying to get him up to speed.
And how was he chosen?
That was, I believe, the Republican Party of those 3 towns put up the candidate, and we had some discussions with him. We actually interviewed him as the Democratic caucus as well.
And that's been an issue, not this year, but in the past, of how you replace people
Yes.
midstream.
For sure.
And so this is what you've chosen this year. That doesn't mean that it will be the policy in the future.
That's true. Right.
So it was a bipartisan process as far as you were concerned.
Yes, I was very proud that we could work together on filling the seat. For me, it was imperative that we filled the seat as immediate as we could, for the sake of representation. So I was happy to be presented a candidate. He answered all of our questions, and we felt as though we could work with him.
And he will be up this, even if there was not that seat was up this year, he will be up this year.
That's right.
But he will be running for a 2-year term.
That's right.
Okay. That's one end of the county. Let me go to the other end of the county. What's the current makeup of the legislature party-wise?
It's a very technical, we have a technical majority, a Democrat majority.
So 11 members of the legislature are either Republican or Democrat. 4, which is I think the largest, it almost sounds like the British Parliament at this stage, are either non-affiliated or conservative party.
Right.
But they're not the two major parties. Has that made assigning committees and operations, has it made it weird, or is it just, and maybe weird is a bad word on my part.
No, it has been interesting. It does go to show that local government, you know, I understand we all campaign to get to the positions that we're in, but to work together, it takes a bipartisan effort. And this year has been proof of that. The past 2 years have been proof of that. It's certainly, you know, there are, you know, a core group of people that, you know, kind of work together. We're all kind of, there's a couple different groups, but we're bipartisan in nature. So
is that mainly Republicans and Democrats?
It's all mixed.
All mixed.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, and it is proof that we have to work together to get things done. And I'm okay living in this sort of quasi limbo state of majority because there are no choices. We must communicate and work together.
So one of the changes that you made or started to make during the year, that's why I was pointing north, which I think is that way, is Andrew Dennison, who's a member of the legislature who was a Republican.
Right.
And is now a non-affiliated. And that occurred where he was a chairman of public safety. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
And there were some comments he had made about the Black Lives Matter movement or related to that, and you removed him from that chairmanship. Am I correct on that?
You are correct, yes.
And then there have been some comments in regards to his comments he's made, I don't know if it was on a podcast or somehow in a recording, about Public Health Director Kathleen Cuddy. Has any action been taken about those? And is it so you nod no. Is there any action that the legislature really can take?
We cannot take action. We cannot remove him from office. Only the governor can remove someone from office. It's up to the voters to decide who they would like to represent them.
And he will not be up until 2023.
That's right.
And does he serve on any committees?
He is on a couple committees, yes, and he has retained a couple of appointments, but that has been reduced because of the nature of those incidents, whom they may have affected. I didn't think it was productive to put him in certain areas myself, so I did not assign him those particular groups, including, you know, judicial public safety.
So let's talk about judicial public safety, not with him. You have been part of a 4-person team.
Yes. Yeah.
City manager, Auburn Police Chief, County Sheriff, and yourself, looking at law enforcement and procedures. And I know you've co-chaired that.
Yes.
First of all, what was the goal of that? And then we'll get into the
So, you know, in light of all of the death of George Floyd and all of the racial tensions and all of the protesting that happened over the summer, the governor put out Executive Order 203 for the reinvention of local police forces. And the mission is to enlist the public in their input and feedback on what would make an effective police force for them. So we received that in June. We started our meetings late summer, early fall, and since then we've just been rolling around with this, and it's been an aggressive schedule, and we thank you for moderating one of our public forums, and we appreciate that. But it's been great to work together with Auburn City Police and the sheriff, talk about what they do. It was enlightening for me to be a part of this process, and you know, we looked at all things related to the police force, including community policing and community relations. We talked about chokeholds. We talked about right to know laws. We talked about all of their policies.
Mental health.
And we talked about mental health. It's a huge piece of this.
So the goal is that the city of Auburn and the county would then go on their, after the public hearings, which were last month, they would go on their own separate pathways, make recommendations. Where's the legislature on that right now? We'll have the mayor on next week and the
Yes.
city manager in a couple weeks. We'll talk to them, but where's the county legislature on that process right now?
So at this point, myself and the sheriff and Aileen Daly also was somebody who's been helping out with this effort. We are going over a draft of the plan. What happened is, although we work together, we have developed 2 separate plans for each municipality to vote on. The county will be voting on their plan next month before we get it sent up to the Division of Budget in Albany. And
Well within the parameters of timelines the governor set.
yeah, April 1st is actually the deadline. And so tomorrow, I believe, I was hoping to get it in time for tonight to have a presentation to the ledge, but I believe by tomorrow they will be sent electronic copies. And I may have to have a special ledge meeting in a couple of weeks to go over the report to make sure that we have any questions answered.
But most of the changes, both whether it's Sheriff Skank or Chief Butler, will be made at the department level. There might be some
That's right.
larger issues, but some of the nitty-gritty is going to be done by those departments, correct?
Absolutely. It has a lot to do with transparency and accountability.
So let's talk about COVID. Let's
Sure.
spend the last 5-6 minutes on COVID.
Okay.
We mostly could do just a show on just COVID.
Absolutely.
So your day-to-day operations as chair, how much of your time is spent on COVID?
The majority. It has been until most recently, it's been the majority of time. And most of last year was, almost 90% of my time was COVID. It has impacted operations in a huge way. We have learned to work remotely. We've learned to move people physically in order to meet the demands of the public. We are still closed to the public, but of course we have to be open to the public for people to access services through social services. So that never closes. So we had to figure out a mechanism to get people through the door who need help.
People are still outside waiting to go into DMV and
Yeah.
and things of that.
So we were able to move some of the social services offices to welcome people to the historian's office. So we've actually done some great partnership and collaboration in order to meet the needs of the public at this point.
There's obviously costs here involved. We've had to put plexiglass up, which seems to be, there was a run on plexiglass, cleaning supplies, things like that. Do you expect the county to ever get reimbursed for any of that?
We were not feeling hopeful until more recently. We've gotten some information from FEMA to say what was going to be reimbursed and how much. I know some of the things that we had put up for reimbursement came back with, with a decline. Some came back with, we will pay a portion of this, where we were expecting a higher percentage. So at this point, we're looking better. It's looking more favorable that we're going to get some reimbursements for, PPE and all of the cleaning. We
You
have.
don't look like, it could be, in fact, if sales tax stays on track and tourism comes back a little bit, you could be in a better shape at the end of this budget, even with the 5% retainage
Yes.
at
Yeah.
this stage.
Yes, and if you asked me that a year ago, I wouldn't have been so.
So
Happy
one
about it.
thing that you and Kathleen Cuddy have had to be involved with have been schools and sports, something that you most likely, so real quickly, you are allowing several sports being held at the high school level.
Right.
How did the two of you come to this feeling that, yes, we should do this?
Nothing, as much as people would like to think, nothing happens in a vacuum. Kathleen and I worked very closely with all the superintendents in the county, and we've had lots of discussion. We've had many calls and discussed the pros and cons. And as long as athletic directors were able to put protocols in place to meet safety standards, we were willing to say this is something we should let happen and allow them to.
Do you think it was fair for the
continue.
governor to put that on counties instead of making the decision himself? Because he seems to be making a lot of decisions on his own, but now you've got different rules for Cayuga County. You skip over to Onondaga. There's different. That's why some sports are not going to be played in this region. But should that have been something done by the state?
Initially I was a little surprised that it happened this way. However, district to district, there's so many varying
700 plus districts.
There's bigger gyms, there's, all different kinds of athletic options for different sports. So, I think it's been a little better because we could actually, talk individually to these districts and see what they could provide, how they could space out their spectator, if they could have spectators.
Right.
We talked
Were
about what that would look like.
you surprised that it even came down to the counties compared to the whole or bigger issue of getting some school districts, Skaneateles is in some cases 5 days a week, Port Barn 5 days a week, but Auburn's really 2. Do you think sports was the priority compared to getting students at desks?
That was very troubling to me as a parent of school-age children, and we care about our children's development. I was very skeptical, and I will tell you that one day upon my son's return to school, they took the tape off the playground. He was able to access the playground, and I have to say he experienced so much joy, and he felt relief in that, and that made me consider about how sports can provide that for students and really help with their development. So, initially I thought, it really should be, it wasn't going to be an all or nothing. You couldn't all just go back to school or do sports. I think we could try to.
Do you think it'll fall to you and Kathleen Cuddy to make the determination whether school's open, whether it's 6 feet or 3 feet, because I think and buses, or do you think that'll be made by the state?
I believe that will be made by the state. I think that's going to be a large jump to go from the 6 foot, and I've been in a classroom, and I know I've had, when you have 22 desks in a classroom, that's a tight classroom, outside of COVID.
Right.
So I don't know theoretically how that can work when you're trying to do 3 feet and try to keep everyone safe. And then, and then I think if you do move to 3 feet, you're really definitely going to be looking at quarantining the entire classroom, whereas if they're a little further apart, perhaps, I know our Board of Health is looking at that today, quarantining portions of the classroom when there's a
So
positive.
last 2 questions on this subject. Okay. What's your biggest worry going into the spring?
Complacency. I worry about.
You worry about people having fatigue,
COVID
fatigue?
fatigue, and they're done with it. They are wanting to get back together. As soon as the snow melts, it's going to be very difficult because here we are a year later going through this. So I think that to me is a big concern. People who are vaccinated feel like maybe they have freedom to roam and go back to their life as it was before. And I think we need to take the next few months and proceed with caution.
Have you gotten your vaccination?
I have not. Nope.
There's a second elected official in a week that has said they have not. Senator Mannion said same. I think you all should be, but that's my personal opinion.
I have a 90-year-old aunt who just went into a nursing home, and she didn't have a vaccine before doing that. And I feel as though I'm not exactly eligible yet, and as soon as I am, I will get it.
So last question, what do you want people to do?
I want folks to look at the silver linings that we've been able to experience. I personally have had a silver lining with how I interact with regional governments, with our regional control group. We're talking about solving problems for counties on a regional basis. We've opened the communication. I think, I'll tell you personally, my son has taken up the electric guitar over COVID, and he's done, it's opened up his universe a bit. So I want people to focus on and capitalize on what they've learned through this. And
headphones
go
or
forward.
speaker?
It's a speaker. He's got a few of them. So we went all out. So I want people to capitalize on the positive things that they've learned and taken away, and hold your families close, get back together, do the Sunday dinners at grandma's, get back together and really learn to spend time with one another in a real focused, mindful way.
30 minutes goes very fast.
Yep.
Maybe 33 because I keep getting the signal. But we do want to thank Aileen McNabb Coleman for joining us, the chair of the Cayuga County Legislature. Hopefully you come back in the fall. You're not up for re-election this year. Yep. Give us a county update, and hopefully we'll be out of most of this.
That would be
hopefully
great.
We'll have some more vaccines and people will be getting those shots.
Right.
So, programming note or two, we will be off on Thursday as the students do some projects here at the college in their coursework. We'll be back next Tuesday, barring a snowstorm, because we've had on our slate, as we have always, the mayor of the city of Auburn, Michael D. Quill, to be our first guest of the season, and he's been shunted aside because of 2 snowstorms. So we will hopefully have him next Tuesday. He'll be followed next Thursday by Auburn Police Chief Sean Butler, who will give us a update not only about what law enforcement has been doing in relation to the Sheriff's Department in the county and the city, but also he is retiring this year, and we'll talk about where he and his department are. In the coming weeks, we'll have a number of guests that we have planned for you. Assemblyman John Lamondes will be here, City Manager Jeffrey Dygert, as well as Neil O'Brien, the Superintendent of Schools of Port Barn, who is also the Dean of the Superintendents in Cayuga County. He is retiring later in the spring. We'll also have Jeff Parazola back in to give us an education update besides the budget, which he's going through. Keith Cutler of East Hill Medical will be in to talk about their 50th anniversary, and we'll also have Frank Barwinczak, who is with Community Actions. He's their Director of Family and Victim Services, and talk about the rise in domestic violence incidents in the last year. We'll also hopefully be bringing you a Zoom forum with the Auburn Large School District. We're working that out with Jeremy Boyer, as usual, the executive editor of The Citizen, asking the questions, and I'll moderate that, and we'll bring you those candidates at the end of April. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your ideas for guests or questions. You can do it at COZGUYTHO at AOL.com, or you can send them to Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a good night, have a great tomorrow, and we will see you back next week, Tuesday, with Mayor Quill.